Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week we hear from the Secretary of Community Development and Culture, Dr. Denise Soifat Angus, and the Secretary for Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, Gary Melville.
First of all, I want to just report somewhat in terms of the results of the recently released results of the SE8 examinations 2013. By now, most of the media and most of Tobago would have known what the results are, that we had put up in 2013, 855 students. At the end of when the results were released last Thursday, we had a female student from the St. Andrews AC school, Miss Emily Bowler, coming first out of all the students on the island, followed by Miss Naya Francis from Scarborough SDA, Miss Delicia Dumas from Plymouth AC. The top male student was a young Master Luke Trim from the Hope AC, and our fifth place student was also from the St. Andrews AC, Miss Janie Antoine. Generally, the girls in the 2013 examinations had better scores than the boys in all three subject areas. However, for Tobago, the overall mean scores, the overall average scores for Tobago were lower than what the national mean, what the national average was. In mathematics, that meant that the mean score in Tobago was 53.9. The mean score nationally was 59.8. So our students were below by about 5.9 points. In language arts, the mean score nationally was 58.3. The mean score for Tobago students was 53.8, which means that our students were below by 4.5 points. And in creative writing, the mean score nationally was 12.4, and in Tobago, it was 11.2. There were a number of schools in Tobago, however, who would have done better than the national mean scores. For most subject areas, you had between 12 to 14 schools in Tobago whose scores were much better than the national average. So when you look at the rankings in terms of the SEA results for Tobago schools, among the government schools, you had Patience Hill Government being the best performing school, followed by Blackrock Government, Speyside Anglican, Scarborough RC, the Devines Road Government, Hope Anglican, Palliative Anglican, Delaford RC, and Signal Hill Government. In general, the high scores in Tobago were a bit higher than they were in the previous year. That means the student who got a top mark was higher than the student who got a top mark last year. And we had 43.5% of our students got more than 60% in terms of the average. 43.5% of our students got more than 60%, and overall 62.8% of the Tobago students, just about 537 students, got above 50%. So based upon the results, we are a division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sports. We want to take the opportunity to congratulate the students who sat the examinations, their parents, the teachers, and the principals of their schools for their achievements in this year's SEA. Just yesterday, we would have hosted as a division a function for the top 20 SEA performers at Mount Irving Hotel, along with their parents and their principals and teachers. In a general sense, for 2013, when we look at our results, we found that the scores of Tobago students, the scores of Tobago students continue to improve. Tobago students' scores have been improving over the last 4 to 5 years, and they continue to improve this year. We also find that the percentage of students the students who get less than 30%, which is really the cutoff point for students who really would need remedial learning. That number of students stood at 9.2% this year. 9.2%, which is also lower than what was there last year, 9.6%. One encouraging thing for us in the division is that the top 100 candidates the top 100 performers in the exam, the students in the top 100, came from 25 different schools across the island. So that is encouraging because it means that a number of schools are doing well across the island. Even when you look at the ranking of the schools in terms of the top performers, you have schools this year that have not been in the top 10 and so on for a while have coming in. You have schools that have done very well this year that were not normally accustomed to doing that. And you find you have an inclusion of a number of schools from Windward, Tobago, schools from Northside. You have a good spread of schools in terms of performance. That's a very encouraging sign. While, as I said before, the Tobago average scores or the Tobago mean scores for different subject areas were below the national means, a number of schools surpassed the national means for all the different subjects. So a number of schools scored much higher than the 58% or so for English and the 59% or so for maths across the board. We pride ourselves that even though we are still below the national means, we are the most, Tobago is recognized as the district, if you want to call it that, the district in Trinidad and Tobago that is experiencing a continuous rate of improvement. We saw that just last year with our national test, where most of our schools were classified either as in the category of academic excellence or mostly effective schools, which is a significant improvement. So we are hoping that improvement continues and that based upon those tests and so on, the next crop of SCA students will do even better than this year's students. We at the division recognize that in Tobago, we produce very well-rounded students. If you look at some of the students who have excelled this year, some of them have been involved in and have been successful at things like music festival and sports and academic competitions, various academic competitions and so on. And therefore, we will continue as a division to work with our students to look for areas of improvement. We would want to see an increase in the percentage of our students who get in the 80 to 100% range. That's where Tobago does not do as well as other districts, in the 80 to 100% range. You will look at, if you look at between the percentages between 50 and 75 or so, Tobago students basically are top in those particular ranks. But when you get up to the 80 to 90% grouping and the 90 to 100% grouping, we need to have better numbers there. We also want to see the continuation of the lowering of the less than 30% group. In that area, Tobago basically may be about middle of in the country. There are a number of divisions in Trinidad where that percentage is much higher than what obtains in Tobago. We would also want to see in the 30% to 50% range, we want to see a smaller percentage of our children in that range. Right now we have about 30%. We want to see that basically go down, within the next year to two. So we'll be putting in place programs to try to treat to that. We'll be seeking to work with the schools that would not have done as well as expected, because as I said, you have schools doing very well and you have schools that are not doing as well. Right? So we continue to work with all the schools and we will hope that our scores and our performance will continue to go up. I also want to mention briefly about the situation with teachers' arrears. As you are aware, just a week or so ago, there was some demonstration by the teachers' union, TUTA, in regard to the payment of arrears for teachers. Of course, teachers are not the only category of workers in Tobago who are in that particular position. We also have daily paid workers who would have gotten a new agreement, and we also have public servants, monthly paid public servants who also have some changes to their salaries and also have arrears outstanding. The problem for the Tobago House of Assembly remains one of funding. We have not gotten all the funding thus far from the Ministry of Finance. The Chief Administrator is in constant contact with the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and as soon as that funding becomes available, teachers, like the other category of workers, daily paid and monthly paid throughout the Assembly, payment of the arrears will begin. The auditing of PHEs and so on continues to happen throughout the various divisions. Some are complete, some are not, some are still on the way, but as soon as the funding is here, payments will begin. I also want to mention the issue of school repairs. We're now in the July-August period where the majority of school repairs are conducted throughout in Tobago. Those works will be commencing this week. We have earmarked at the division some $18 million to carry out repairs at all of the secondary schools, the various government and government-assisted primary schools, and the early childhood care and education centers. We have a number of works being undertaken, as I said, throughout the island. We have a goal of ensuring that all our schools reopen on time in September. That is a non-negotiable goal. We will not begin any works that are going to go over into that period. We have taken the added precaution of writing all the school principals prior to the closure of school, inquiring as to whether or not there were any issues in the school, at their school, that would affect its reopening in September. So we expect that where there are challenges that we are not aware of as yet, that those will be taken on board. So we expect to see all our schools reopen on time in September. One of the added things that we intend to do this year in terms of our school repairs program, school enhancement, is that we want to try to make more of our schools accessible to the differently abled. So for that reason, we are planning to construct a number of ramps, in wheelchair ramps in various schools around Tobago, to ensure that those students who have various physical challenges and so on can have access to schools close to their address, close to their home. So we're planning to construct ramps at Patience Hill Government, Delaford Anglican, Roxborough Anglican, Castara Government, Devines Road Government, Table Peace, Blackrock, Bon Accord, Buku, and St. Patrick. Initially, we want to look at these schools because they will cover a wide enough area so that even if somebody has a challenge, they can access a school close by enough to them. And we will also, in these schools, we'll also be updating the washrooms so that they can have in their grab bars, they have lower wash basins and have accessible drinking coolers to allow easier access to those students who are in wheelchairs. As I close, let me just take the opportunity to offer best wishes to our Tobago athletes who have just went off to the World Youth Championships in the Ukraine. We have Ms. Chelsea James, Mr. Kenisha Williams, and Ms. Andwele Wright, all of whom, as you would be aware, have been very high achievers at the regional level thus far, and we wish them every success in their step up at this particular point in time. We will also want to remind parents and guardians that the division is about to start its sports camps on the 15th of July next week. So they will seek the opportunity to get their charges into a camp close to where they reside. Our music camps have already started this week. They have been somewhat oversubscribed, but the policy of the division is that we will seek to provide opportunities for as many students as possible. So parents who may not have been able to get their children in as yet can still seek to do so, because we are trying to expand the reach of the program.
I want to begin by first expressing my sincerest condolences to the family of Rodel Clark, otherwise known as Paggy, and everyone would agree that this person, this individual, was unique and would have made a difference in the lives of Tobagonians across the length and breadth of this island, and even in Trinidad and abroad, for many decades. Mr. Melville would also agree that he was an avid sportsman in both cricket and football, and a coach. And in addition, where culture is concerned, everyone would have known him as the Joshua Walker of the Turn of the Tide series, where he would have done a lot of work to share with Tobagonians the way of life in that series. I mean, some would even say that on a Monday night there was no crime around the town because everyone was at home, you know, viewing Joshua. But I think, you know, of all, Mr. Clark was also a fierce supporter of our heritage. And up until his recent death, he was involved with the villages, ensuring that our heritage is showcased in a particular way, and at the end of the day, it is protected. And therefore, I join all Tobagonians in echoing the loss, and that he will be greatly missed, and to give the commitment that from the Division of Community Development and Culture, that we will be looking at some initiatives to put in place to pay tribute to the life of this great community icon. The next area I would like to report on is that we have had a lot of activities over the past 2 weeks where community development is involved. And those week-long activities would have started with a church service last Monday to bring all our stakeholders together to say thanks and to ask God's blessings for going forward throughout the year. We would have also participated in a forum in Trinidad with the Ministry of Community Development, and to one that discussed the challenges facing traditional organizations in developing communities. And subsequent to that, we would have had last week again the collaboration with the Festival Commission in hosting the Yesterday's Children program, where we celebrated with the senior citizens. We brought them together in John Dial and celebrated them and celebrated with them, and paid tribute to what they would have given us and contributed to where we are today in our lives. In that program, we would have launched our Centenarian Awareness and Appreciation Program, which is a program coming out of the Division of Community Development and Culture, and you know, again, paying special tribute to those who would have turned 100 in our communities. We had about 4 of them who earned that special appreciation, and we have approximately, I believe it was about 10 more who would have been between the ages of 95 to 100. At that program, they were given trees as a token of appreciation to be able to plant with their loved ones, and as a part of one of the legacies that we talk about of taking pride within our environment. On the Friday the 5th, that was Community Development Day. It is the first time that Community Development Day is being celebrated in Trinidad and Tobago. And we decided in the vision to have a tree planting exercise, making persons aware of their environment as the first step in ensuring your community develops along a particular way. We would have planted various a variety of plants that would have been symbolic of who we are as a people. That also was quite an exciting day for us, and we were able to involve the villages from around the island. Many villages, village councils came out and picked up their plants. We involved the schools, and we also involved churches and other special interest groups. We also had a number of individuals who came out, and it was quite an exciting event. We were able to distribute over 4,000 plants, and I hope that they're all planted by now. And therefore, the next stage is persons nurturing these plants to ensure that, you know, they all survive over the next year and beyond. The next activity we had was just yesterday on Tuesday, where the division paid tribute to the members of the Mount Irving Trust who are now absorbed in the Tobago Trust, and a special recognition to Mr. Edward Hernandez. It was only in 1992 that the Mount Irving Trust, a small group of members who gave their lives, gave their dedicated service towards the community of protecting a number of artifacts that would have been gathered over years. And in 1992, they turned that collection, they loaned the collection to the Tobago House of Assembly, and they, just yesterday, we had a program where the collection was officially handed over to the Tobago House of Assembly through the Tobago Trust, which is under the Division of Community Development and Culture. There were about, I believe, about 15 persons who were recognized at that event down at the Cocoa Reef Hotel yesterday. But in addition to that, Mr. Edward Hernandez was specially recognized during that event, not just for being the curator of the Tobago Museum, but, as I would have said yesterday, the man who gave birth to a woman. And this comes about because Mr. Edward Hernandez was the gentleman who created the logo for the Tobago Heritage Festival, a logo that says, "She becomes more beautiful." And this is not just a logo that should be featuring during Heritage season or during the Heritage Festival, but it is a logo that speaks to all of us as Tobagonians, as individuals and collectively, about our growth and development, and therefore the mandate that we need to become more beautiful in our lives, as I said, as individuals, and collectively as a people. And therefore, you know, the logo as it is expressed is powerful, limitless, it transcends time and generations. And therefore, we need to take it on seriously as something that we live in our daily lives and not just during the heritage season. But as we speak about our heritage season, this is where we are right now. And we are in the middle of preparation and activities for the Tobago Heritage Festival 2013. When the board was installed, the board of the commission was installed a couple months ago, they were given a mandate that Heritage Festival should just not be a small 2-week event or a season, that we must be able to live our heritage throughout the year, and therefore to experience at different times throughout the year, you know, and to remind us of how our ancestors lived. And in so doing, they were able to start taking some of the heritage events that we will normally have and placing it outside of the heritage period. One such example is the Folk Fiesta that has been moved out, the Belly Fest that has been moved out, and also the Youth Explosion. But in addition to that, they have developed some pre-heritage events that have come off quite well. And one of those events just happened within the last couple of days. We had on Monday, we had the opening, the official launch of the Heritage Village and Night Market at the Fort King George site. That was a very special event, and persons are quite excited about the whole experience, being able to see how our ancestors live as part of the village, being able to view some of the old films. It was very nostalgic, and also being able to purchase some of the condiments that the vendors there would have brought to the space. So that activity is going to be there over the next month, and we have to say thanks to the Division of Tourism and Transport for giving us that space in order to provide that activity. Of course, everyone knows the theme. It is about reflections, and I firmly believe that every theme for heritage should not just be the theme of the season, but should be the theme that we are all taking on into our lives in terms of reflecting on our ancestors, how they lived, and therefore, how does that apply? How can we take some of those things that created the opportunities for us today and practice those things in furthering where we want to go? And coming out of that, we should get a better direction in all of our lives, not just as individuals, but collectively as a people. And so we certainly asking persons to take that on seriously. Of course, there is the opening night celebration coming up on the 12th of July. That is this Friday. And we are looking forward to quite an exciting opening, I understand. And there's also been an addition to that weekend's activities, the Diaspora Connections, which is about us, understanding where we came from again, and seeing how we are connected as a people. And therefore, we will be having guest artists from some of the various islands and also from our Trinidad counterparts. So that is also on Saturday, the 13th. And I know that there are some challenges. They experience some challenges with weather conditions concerning the tent activities for that area at the Dwight York Stadium this weekend. However, I have been reassured that there have been some systems put into place that will ensure the safety of the patrons at the site. There are discussions ongoing with the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities and getting their assistance with looking at the setup of the tent area. But in addition to that, I understand that the health and safety, OSHA, will be involved in certifying that the area is safe, and therefore we expect to see persons coming out in their numbers to the event over the weekend. Now, I know that there have also been some issues in the public domain with respect to, some procurement activities. And I have made it quite clear to the board coming in that, at all times, a board is expected to ensure that all procurement processes are in place. And, at the end of this, the division has to review everything that has been put forward. And therefore, we are looking forward to the reports coming out of the commission on all of these activities for the heritage, not just procurement, but for everything that is encompassed within this period.